This is AEW Unrestricted, the official podcast of All Elite Wrestling. I'm referee Aubrey Edwards here with my co-host and longtime legendary commentator Tony Schiavone.
And good friend.
And good friend.
Absolutely.
Very good friend.
Yes, friendship has developed.
Friendship.
Sincerely.
Sincerely.
Friendship. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it. I really have.
I appreciate you saying that.
No problem.
Speaking of friendships
Yes.
and relationships and really awesome people we like working with, we've got our reoccurring guest, Tony Khan, president of All Elite Wrestling, here with us today. We're here to actually talk about Fyter Fest,
Right.
which is 2 nights, kicking off July 1st, TNT, 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 Central.
Next
Dynamite.
Wednesday, yeah.
Yes, next Wednesday. And then the following Wednesday, July 8th, same time slot, same place, TNT. It's going to be really, really awesome. But before we talk about Fyter Fest, there's a lot going on in the world right now, and we just kind of want to touch on that briefly. First off, we're still in a global pandemic. It affects us every day at work. We're getting tested every time we come in to tape and whatnot.
Right.
Social distancing, masks, quarantining, all of that.
I think, and speaking on someone who started in wrestling in the 80s and saw it through the 90s and took a little sabbatical, but wrestling has changed on the inside, and I think that's a credit to you and the EVPs. It has evolved. It has gotten better. It's a better place, a better working environment. You said right before the pandemic hit, if you're sick, stay home. It would not affect your job. It made us all feel good about our job. And I think that's a credit to you and the EVPs for all you've done.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that, Tony.
Speaking of jumping into Fyter Fest,
Let's do it.
let's talk about it, right? So 2 nights.
Yes.
First night's going to be huge. We've got a number of matches. I mean, first off, back, even before that, every single title is on the line.
Yes.
Which is huge. Huge. I don't think we've ever done that on Dynamite.
No, we've never had all the titles on the line. Now, across these 2 episodes, every title will be on the line, and really, so many of the major stories in AEW are going to be coming to a head, or it's going to be a huge moment in these stories. It's just going to be a lot of awesome things, and it's the kind of environment typically that we have on pay-per-view and for our big shows quarterly, and this is like one of those. It's kind of in between Double or Nothing and All Out. Last year, it was a streaming special. It was a huge success as a streaming special. It was actually the number 2 customer acquisition day ever for BR Live, and they have tons of live sports, and it's a great service. So we wear it as a badge of honor with all the great, European football and all the great sports they've covered, but also the only sporting event or any event for BR Live that ever had exceeded us in terms of customer acquisition on the app was the Tiger Woods Phil Mickelson golf match, which are the 2 biggest names in that sport and 2 of the biggest names in sports. So that was pretty cool. And this year, I had said after Double or Nothing in the scrum after that show that I really wanted to bring Fyter Fest to England, and I thought it would have been awesome if we could have done it.
Yes.
And that was the original plan for this event. And then when that wasn't possible, I realized that it's something that we could still do as a special set of Dynamites. And when you look at the amount of content in your 2-hour show, even without the ad breaks, especially when you factor back in that the picture-in-picture that we stay with the matches as much as we can, then really across a couple 2-hour TV shows, you can really get that action of one big pay-per-view and have all your big stories and all these big matches. And that's why I think Fyter Fest as a 2-week event is one of the biggest things we've ever done on Dynamite, and I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, you've got, like Aubrey mentioned, you got 4 title matches. You got 3 the first night. And these title matches are well documented now. I mean, Cody and Jake Hager, what a physical match that's going to be, and it means so much on many levels.
Yes,
when you talk about the TNT Championship,
absolutely. And then we saw the press conference last night that had gotten out of hand, and the physicality there, and I think that's going to be an awesome match. And those guys have a lot of history, and they've had some great matches against each other. And Dustin and Jake Hager have had great matches and had a great match at Revolution, and the history going back with Jake breaking Cody's brother's hand before the Cody and Chris Jericho match at Full Gear. So there's a ton of history between Cody and Jake, both in AEW and out of AEW. The press conference, the sparks flying, really touched on the kind of things we see in big championship fights in other sports, in mixed martial arts and boxing. So that was a really cool that was a cool way to kick off the show, and that's going to be a great match.
Yeah, he's Jake Hager, and I know, listen, we all love Cody, and I know what he has meant, wanting to defend that title, making a personal sense of pride with him. But Jake Hager is, I mean, as far as a guy that can just turn you inside out.
He's something else.
I was talking to him about it the other day. I said, way back when, in the backstage area, no one wanted to screw around with Rick Steiner because he was the type of guy that could stretch you.
Yeah.
I said, you're that guy now because you're so tough. And he really is. He's really tough as they come. I mean.
Yeah, Jake's tough as nails, and it's going to be a really tough test, and that's probably the toughest test yet for Cody, and it's going to be a great title match. And with that, we're into night one. I mean, that's one of the 3 title matches in night one.
Right.
And then before we get to the title matches, after the great lumberjack match we had last night,
yes.
I think we have to touch on with MJF and Wardlow versus Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy now.
It's going to be so good.
It's going to be awesome. And we've seen MJF and Jungle Boy had the classic at Double or Nothing, and really they've had a couple classics now over the last year, and developed a real rivalry since we started the company. And they have such great chemistry. I thought they'd worked together outside AEW. I was sure they must have.
Yeah.
Because they had worked together on a cruise, on the Jericho cruise, in one of the house show matches, and it was tremendous.
Yeah, it was me, Jack, and MJF on the boat.
Yep, it was great. Yeah, and the 3 of you, as with the great referees, I forgot that you had refereed that. But to be fair, we only had 2 referees on the boat.
See me.
I feel like you refereed a large percentage of the matches on the boat anyway.
I was just wearing colorful shorts, so it was easy to remember me.
It was a great. Well, I remember, and the wrestling was tremendous, and the MJF and Jungle Boy. Then I remembered that, and had booked him also in a Dynamite match. That was a great match, and they'd only done a couple things together, and I remember I changed some times on them, and they were like, they seemed like they'd be thrown off, and instead they thrived on it. But when they seemed like they'd be thrown off, I said to them, I was like, I figured you guys had wrestled 100 times. They hadn't. They'd only wrestled a couple times, and they have the chemistry of guys that have been doing this together forever. To me, it's one of the great rivalries, not just for the future, but now. Like MJF and Jungle Boy, we always talk about potential, but those guys are like 2 of the top guys right now, and at their age, that's when it's really exciting, when you have guys in that conversation. And with Wardlow and Luchasaurus, the lumberjack match last night, they're just, you call them hosses. They're too big hosses, and things got really chaotic and crazy last night. And I think with Wardlow and Luchasaurus, to me, I think they're kind of the X factors in this match, because everybody knows this rivalry goes way back between Jungle Boy and MJF, but Luchasaurus and Wardlow are 2 big names for the future too, and they both gotten over big, and I think that's going to be an awesome tag match.
Yeah, another awesome tag match, Private Party against Santana and Ortiz. We talk about X factors. It's a cliche in wrestling, but really with Matt Hardy being with Private Party, that's pretty special.
You have 3 potential X factors with Matt Hardy.
Right,
I mean, it's hard to know who he's ever going to show up
Well, I
as.
think now it's going to be interesting, because Chris Jericho now will be on commentary for this show, whereas Matt Hardy is going to be at ringside. So you have both teams are really advised by all-time legends.
Sure.
Not just all-time legends in the wrestling business, but also 2 of the great tag team wrestlers of all time. All the great tag teams Chris Jericho's been in, all the obviously Matt Hardy's a Mount Rushmore tag team wrestler.
Right.
And so I think it's going to be an awesome match, and those are 2 top teams, and there's been a rivalry going on for a while between Private Party and Santana Ortiz. It goes back, and I think it's going to be a great match.
I like the dynamic of Private Party with Matt Hardy. I really do.
Hardy Party,
because we've seen the videos. They're kids who just love the business, much like Matt Hardy was when he first started in the business, right? So I think it's really a great pairing.
I think so too.
Yeah,
I'm glad you like it.
Yeah,
it's a fun thing. That's a really fun pairing, and we've got a lot of fun stuff in night one, and then we've talked about these 3 great matches, and we still have the 2 world title matches.
Yes.
We sure do. I tell you what, let's do. Let's talk about those world title matches in just a moment. We're talking with Tony Khan, and we're talking about Fyter Fest beginning next Wednesday for 2 weeks on TNT.
This is AEW Unrestricted. We're sitting here with Tony Khan Tony Schiavone. I'm just surrounded by Tonys.
Yes,
We're
you
talking
are.
night one, Fyter Fest, which will be next week, July 1st on TNT at 8 Eastern, 7 Central. We've talked about a couple of great tag team matches. We've already got 2 that we've covered, Santana and Ortiz versus Private Party. We've also talked about
MJF and Wardlow
versus Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus, but
2 more world title matches night 1.
2 more world title matches and another tag match night 1. So Best Friends versus Kenny and Hangman, and this is personally one of the matches I'm most excited about because I've seen what Best Friends were capable of doing over the course of April and May leading up to where we are now and how they got here, but then the chemistry that Kenny and Hangman have built despite the differences that we've seen within the Elite. This is going to be one of those matches that's just, I think it's going to be one that everybody talks about.
I think so too. The sit-down interview those teams did really showed there is a lot of animosity. They're 2 fan-favorite teams, but as we saw at Revolution, ironically, the sparks also kind of flew in the sit-down interview before Revolution between the Young Bucks and Kenny and Hangman. This one also got pretty spicy, and to me, I think these are the 2 top tag teams in AEW right now, and it's interesting look at the 2 teams because whereas Kenny and Hangman have consistently been great every time they team, they also had a break of a couple months, and they came back firing on all cylinders in the Stadium Stampede, and then they've defended the titles a couple times since then, but they really the Best Friends have been the team that has been the most consistently in action. They've been so huge to us, and I can't say enough. I mean, when you talk about AEW and the great shows and everything we've done, Kenny and Hangman, it goes without saying that Kenny and Hangman are such a huge part of it. They're main evented the first 2 pay-per-views we did, both each against Chris Jericho. Kenny and Chris in the title eliminator at Double or Nothing on our first pay-per-view, and then our next big show at All Out. With Chris and Hangman for the title, and then since then they became this great team. And frankly, I'm a huge believer in the Kenny and Hangman team. I was the original person who, pushed the Kenny and Hangman idea together, and that they'd be a great team. And then they came together, and their ideas are very different, and their personalities are very different. They'd been in a stable together for quite a long time, but they'd never been a regular tag team, and they really took to it. And then, it became so important to AEW. The Kenny and Hangman matches became really some of the best matches on our show. Some of the things that people really look forward to as much as anything is a great Kenny and Hangman match. And then over these past couple of months, the last time I did a podcast with you, we talked at length about how we kind of kept the lights on here in AEW, so to speak, with the tapings we did in Georgia, which, if you missed the last time I visited you guys, it's a fun retelling of some fun ingenuity, and I enjoyed rolling my sleeves up and taking out the pencil and doing a bunch of shows in a hurry, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And the Best Friends were a huge part of it, and the Best Friends were all over those shows. They were on almost every show.
Wrestled multiple times in the same day. All of the matches were great. Amazing matches.
Yeah, what they did in 24 hours was so important to us, and then not just those shows, but really all the shows this year, even before the pandemic. Like the Best Friends were coming into form as one of our top teams. They had this great rivalry with the Death Triangle. Obviously, Pac and Pentagon had been sidelined due to the borders being closed during COVID. So the Best Friends just kept pounding away, and they beat a bunch of teams, and they've won a bunch of matches against top teams, and now they're on a long winning streak. And you can't talk about 2020 and AEW without talking about their consistency. We really owe these guys,
right?
And that's where it got pretty interesting, because Kenny and Hangman, I mean, you can't talk about AEW without talking about them. They're 2 of the biggest names, but frankly, the Best Friends earned their spot in the conversation this year.
I don't think there's any question there.
Yeah.
And I'm very, very, very fond of the Best Friends, personally and professionally. I think they're a great team, and I'm really glad they're getting this chance to be in, one of the main event world title matches. And I think it's going to be a great match, and, night 1 is just a loaded show, and we still have another title match.
Yes, we do. Yeah,
we still haven't talked about the women's title.
No, and you mentioned that because of COVID, we haven't seen PAC and we haven't seen Pentagon. We really haven't seen a lot of our female competitors because of COVID.
It's true. A lot of the women
Right.
in here in this company live in other countries,
Right.
no doubt, and people haven't been available in Japan, obviously,
Right.
and people haven't been available from England. So it's definitely made it difficult. And at the same time, we were very fortunate that a lot of the top women ranked in the division at the time were here.
Right.
And like we were on the last podcast, and it was like, let's be glass half full. Sure, we in Georgia had 20-something% of the roster available to us, but we had enough people available that were going to be in the TNT tournament. We were able to do this great tournament and tell these great stories and do some really good shows. And I was proud of some numbers we did on the back end of those shows, especially as we went later in the month on the tape shows and the numbers were going up, and it proved the stories were compelling and we'd done good work. And to me, we are very fortunate that so many of the great women were here in America, and that Sheeta, stayed in America, and it worked out great for her too, because she continued her winning streak and won the championship.
Right.
But at the beginning of the COVID, there was questions about who, people were wondering whether they should stay here or go back, and I offered to everybody we'd do everything that we could to accommodate people who did stay here, and Sheeta has been great about it, and there's great women that are still a huge part of the conversation that just aren't able to come over, and obviously a lot of women here in our company are wrestlers who are wrestle in Japan,
Right.
And so there's some women in Japan that are a big part of the conversation and look to get back. But we're so fortunate that Sheeta and Nyla Rose, Britt Baker, and Chris Statlander now is injured. But then Penelope Ford,
Yeah, she developed during this, didn't she?
Penelope Ford and Big Swole
Right. Yes.
really stepped up. I mean, Sheeta, we talked about how she stepped up and won the title. We talk about Britt ad nauseum. We talk about Britt. You talk about Britt
I talk about her a
Buddy.
lot.
You talk about her a lot.
Her ego's big. We don't need to make it any bigger.
And,
I'm
but
not a
she's-
conspirator. She's just, she's full of herself.
Britt, so Britt, there's a lot of Tony wants you to pipe down with that.
You're on timeout, aren't you?
He
I
doesn't
don't
want to
remember
hear
anymore.
that.
I can't keep track.
But so no, it's seriously for Big Swole, it's been a tremendous time because she's broken out as a character. What she did last night,
Yeah.
Britt deserved the comeuppance really the last 2 weeks,
Sure.
and it was bad enough to put Britt into the dumpster, but then really to bring the garbage to Britt and give Britt kind of a taste of her own medicine. As Britt's been kind of a bully this year, and I think Swole's paid her back, and that's been great to see. But on night one, the other wrestler I think who's had a huge breakout is Penelope Ford.
Sure, she
and I'm really happy that Penelope Ford's getting this opportunity. I haven't talked to you guys much about when Penelope Ford got the opportunity to wrestle on Double or Nothing, because speaking of Britt, it wasn't originally supposed to be Statlander and Penelope Ford in that match, which was a great match, and they only had really several hours to get ready for the match because with Britt, we got on a short time frame that she was out injured. It happened on a Wednesday, and she went in and got checked out. And I wasn't really sure whether we would do a 7-match pay-per-view or do a substitute or how we would do it. But Penelope was already there managing Kip in the ladder match that was going to open the show, and she was going to get involved in that. We knew, but I felt like if she felt up to it, like she could really help us out, but help herself out and have a great match with Statlander. They seem like they'd be great opponents, and they're both great athletes. And I thought with with their athletic ability, their mentality, and with the great coaching we have, I thought they could put together a great match and have a great match on short notice, and they did. They had a great match.
Very good.
And as sad as I am for Statlander about her injury, and it stinks, I think it's a great opportunity for Penelope, and we'd be remiss without talking about how much Penelope's grown as a wrestler in 2020.
Yeah.
And I think she deserves this chance, and I'm excited to see Sheeta Penelope is another great title match.
When you signed Penelope and Kip, now you signed, we knew that Penelope was athletic, and we knew that she was involved in Kip's matches. But when did you realize? We all realized it, but she can be more than just a manager.
I like Penelope as a wrestler. When we signed Penelope, I mean, Penelope was with Joey when we signed her, and she was on the Indies, and I'd seen Penelope interfere in Joey's matches, but she did exciting high spots, and we believed that she could be an important part of the women's roster, but she's gotten a lot better in the last year and really worked her way up the top 5 to where she deserves this chance. And what's cool is when we announced it, people were really excited about the match, and that shows how credible she's become in a quick time, because people are harsh critics sometimes, and I think, as we all know. But in all seriousness, people are great, and when you have a compelling story, most people are going to latch onto it from what I've seen. And the better the story, the higher the approval rating is. I mean, a lot of times people don't like stuff, but you can't just say that like they're wrong because they don't like stuff. Like they're right. Like it's not, the customer's right is an expression, but there's a lot of truth to it, because if a storyline doesn't resonate and people don't get it, it doesn't mean they're wrong. It means you didn't do a good enough job telling the story where they understand it. You might have had a cool idea and something compelling, and maybe there was something to it, but a lot of times people, when an idea doesn't get across, it doesn't get over, people want to say like, oh, they didn't get it, like the people are goofballs, like it's their fault. And it's like, no, it's quite the contrary. And this was one of those things where both when we put her in with Statlander, it showed, I thought, when there was such positive reception as a last day, not exactly last minute, but last several hours substitute on the day of the show, that people were really excited for that match. And then, again, when we had her come in as a substitute for this match, people were really excited because, frankly, originally I thought Statlander would get this match. And it's ironic because I thought Penelope stepped in and had this great match with Statlander, but then frankly, that's not how it played out. Penelope earned it. Like the great scenario, she pinned the champion, and then what we saw last night, Penelope's really grabbed a brass ring, and I think a lot of, just like we talked about the Best Friends a few minutes ago and how they really seized the proverbial brass ring and they seized the day, then I think that the same could be said for Penelope, that really through this pandemic and through this year, she's made the most of these opportunities.
One more thing about the women's division, regardless of any conspiracy theories that may be out there.
Or bias.
I'm not biased at
You're
all.
Totally
no,
biased.
I'm not.
Shut up.
No. So there's a lot of interest in the women's division. You see it on social media, and rightfully so. And I think, I always say that you get as much you put into something, that's how much you'll get back out of it. And we put a lot of effort into the women's division. There's a lot of people behind the scenes that put a lot of effort into women's wrestling.
That's right.
And I think it's showing. I really
absolutely
do. And
is.
I think Penelope is a case for that.
I can't say enough good things about Kenny and the great ideas Kenny has.
Right,
we talked
exactly.
earlier about about Britt going and ending up in the dumpster. We haven't talked at all about Abaddon or Anna Jay today when we talk about the women's division, but Kenny's done great stuff with them. QT had trained Anna Jay, and Kenny saw something in her, but Kenny also had a great idea to really turn it over on people's heads when we built up a big Anna Jay debut, and then here comes Abaddon, and all of a sudden the deck has been stacked kind of, and then marrying that together with the Dark Order story, and it was a lot of fun sitting with him and kind of pairing those two things together. I love working with Kenny, and then Kenny had these amazing ideas for Britt recently with the dumpster and Swole, and that worked out great for Swole. It was great for Swole, and even though it probably was not fun for Britt, I think in the long run it's good for Britt too.
She
then
did quite well with it.
And and then we did more fun stuff with it last night. And so Kenny works so hard on the women's division, and it's a real pleasure to sit with him and work on that stuff with him. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, again, you put a lot of effort into it, and we're seeing it. We really are.
You're going to see quality coming out.
Yeah, you really are, because of the effort we put into it. We really are. We're talking with Tony Khan. We've talked about the first night of Fyter Fest. I think we've talked about all the matches, 3 title matches the first night.
Yes.
The second night of Fyter Fest, they got one big title match, which is the world title match, but there's a whole lot more, and we'll talk about that coming up here on AEW Unrestricted with Tony Schiavone and
Aubrey Edwards.
I'm glad you still know your name.
Yay! This is AEW Unrestricted. Tony and Aubrey here with Tony Khan. We just ran through the card for night 1 of Fyter Fest, which is next week, July 1st.
Right.
Big night, 3 titles, multiple tag matches. All of the matches are going to be definitely, can't miss. But we've also got night 2 of Fyter Fest, July 8th, 8 o'clock, 7 Central on TNT. Tony, how much wrestling can you pack into a single show? Because
6 matches. You can't pack any more than 6 matches into a show, and that's what we've got.
2-hour show
matches.
with picture-in-picture and ad partners. This is a lot. This is a pay-per-view. This is insane.
Yeah, it's really almost 2. And across the 2 weeks, it's as good as any pay-per-view card we can do, which is saying something because I'm really proud of the stuff we do. So to do a show like this, I hope it's big for a lot of reasons. It's big for the fans that have stuck with us through 9 months of television at this whole mark, but also over a year of wrestling shows. And it's also going to be great for people that haven't seen AEW before and tune in for big events. And I think it'll draw in some fans. So I'm excited. And it's also going to just be an awesome show with great wrestling. Yeah. And you could jump right into it. I think we've got Lance Archer and Joey Janela.
Right. Oh, boy.
I'm excited for that match. We've seen Lance has taken some interest in Joey and Sonny, as Sonny and Joey have become a great team lately. But Lance on Dark and recently has taken a lot of interest and has been watching them with possible licking his chops, like an appetite he's got for destruction. And I think it's going to be a great match. And Joey is a great opponent for Archer because Joey has no regard for his own body or well-being, and nor does he have any regard for anybody else's body or well-being, frankly. So he's a perfect opponent for Lance Archer, and it should just be a crazy spectacle and an awesome wrestling match.
Oh, man.
We have Colt Cabana with members of the Dark Order.
Yes, including Brody.
Brody,
it's a 6-man tag,
right.
And Colt and Brody will be in there. And I believe I'm going to say Stu of the Dark Order, Stu Grayson, numero dos, as it were.
Yeah.
He will be in there, and that's going to be a great tag match, a great 6-man tag against SCU. And when we first saw Colt Cabana come into AEW, it was actually a Revolution on the buy-in. And before Revolution kicked off, we saw Colt Cabana show up to save SCU from the Dark Order.
That's right.
And then this shows how much things have changed with Brody Lee in charge of the Dark Order now. He's turned the organization around so much. And since he came in and decided to take control and get his hands around things, he's really got his hands around things. And so things have changed so much now. Colt Cabana has been recruited against his old friends, and it just shows how much things have changed. I feel like it's like shows what a few bad decisions can do to you. Right. And I think that for Colt Cabana, it's been a fun story that we've enjoyed telling, and it'll continue to be a fun story. And I think that with SCU, they've been consistently great wrestlers here, and they've been in some of the great matches we've had. And I'm excited for this. So that's going to be another great match. And then we were talking about women's wrestling, and we were talking about Sheeta and the women's title being up on night 1. And the former champion, Nyla Rose, is going to be in action. And also, she says she has an announcement.
I'm really interested to see what this is.
I have an idea what the announcement is, and it's awesome. And nobody else knows, but I know, and I think it's going to be huge.
Okay.
And so Nyla Rose in action and has an announcement, and we always know when somebody's in action, anything can happen. So that should be a lot of fun, and she's going to have some more details on that.
Okay.
And then I think now, we've seen through several weeks, things have gotten very intense between Chris Jericho and Orange Cassidy.
Oh, boy. So many puns.
It started, to me, things got very sideways when you were in the broadcast booth with Chris. Chris was really none too pleased with Orange Cassidy, as he was on commentary, and he had a lot of really nasty things to say about him. And then Orange Cassidy kind of innocuously, I thought, walked through Chris's shot when Chris was doing an interview. and he took exception to that, and then Inner Circle jumped Orange Cassidy as he was going into the TNT title battle royal, which was a really fun battle royal. We had a lot of fun working on that.
So much fun.
And Chris tried to ruin the fun, but it was
That's what he does.
It still ended up being really fun. Orange Cassidy still almost won, and we did a really good number, and I was really proud of that because we had fun putting that together. And then for over 1 million people to be watching that finish, which was such a cool moment with so many of the important stars of AEW, to have MJF and Wardlow out there and they get tossed and it's just Jungle Boy and Orange Cassidy. That was pretty cool. And Chris tried to ruin that for Orange Cassidy, and then since then Orange Cassidy came back and Chris and Sammy had a chance to become the #1 contenders, best friends, whether it was wise or not. They put the title shot on the line a couple weeks ago, and that worked out okay for them. Now they still have their title shot and they got some revenge. They had a plan worthy of Chris Jericho, and Orange Cassidy was dressed as the cameraman. He was on camera 12. And
Camera 12.
He
So
did a
dependable.
great job on camera 12. He was very dependable.
Yeah.
And the referee was not you, it was Bryce, but somehow Bryce managed to miss that Orange Cassidy was down there the whole time and didn't notice what was going on, but that's typical Bryce, and I'll have to look into that. But
we can't see everything, Tony. We don't have eyes in the back of our head.
well, that Bryce was out of position, I thought. But nevertheless, I did, it's my fault for giving Orange Cassidy a cameraman's license.
How dare you?
But
There are cameraman licenses now?
yeah,
Okay.
Give him a manager's license, I give him a cameraman's
Oh, there you
license.
go. Okay.
In all seriousness, with him being out there, that was a really fun end to the show. And those guys are having a really fun rivalry. And then last night they took it to another level.
Right.
Orange has had some comeuppance on Chris. And frankly, we haven't seen anybody get to Chris like this in a long time. But we also haven't seen a wrestler get so popular so quick.
Amazing.
Out of nowhere.
It's an amazing story.
And it's been a lot of fun working on it. And a lot of it we've worked on and tried marketing him and building, such a fun character. And this he's an enigma, and he had such a great presentation coming in, and nobody really believed in it, I felt like, outside of a core group of people. And it's been really, really fun building something from the ground up with Orange Cassidy, I feel like, because outside of the really hardcore wrestling fan base, there probably weren't a lot of people every week that were tuning in to watch him at first.
Right.
But he organically, as you saw, through all your career in the wrestling business, Tony, and your vast travels and broadcasting and production, you've seen people organically get over like
That's
this.
right.
And it was a lot of fun. And then as it was becoming more and more apparent that it was working, it was fun putting in and investing in it and doing the details. And if you look back at Orange Cassidy, if you look back to 2019 even, a lot of people don't remember this. Before there was a death triangle and before there was the idea of Pac and the Lucha Brothers versus Orange Cassidy and the Best Friends, I was already experimenting with this idea, trying to set up eventually Pac and Orange Cassidy in the matchmaking when I booked Pac and TH2 in a match with Orange Cassidy and the Best Friends. The idea was to put some backstory out there with Pac and Orange Cassidy for the long run when it was time for Orange Cassidy to finally have a singles match. But we subtly built up for a long time to his first singles match because he was really either a manager or he did some 6-man tags and he was in a couple of battle royals, but he hadn't, until Revolution, ever done a singles match. And I remember in Kansas City, it was this crazy day because Fulham were playing Swansea in English football, and I was watching in the locker room next to Pac, and I ran in because Pac is also a big English football fan, and we scored at the death, like at the final minute, to beat Swansea, and I ran in and gave Pac a big hug, and I remember he was going to go in, not that Pac's a hugger, and obviously
Totally
right
not.
now none of us are huggers. Right?
None of us are huggers, no.
But at the, in February we were still hugging, and I grabbed Pac and stole a hug from him. And then I was really happy, and I went up to catering, and I knew that one way or another after the Pac Kenny Omega Iron Man match that after they, went the distance, that Orange Cassidy was going to be coming out to challenge Pac, because Pac had this interview on the format with you, and I had told you before we did it that they're going to chant these people, he's going to try.
Yes.
He's going to try. He's going to try.
Yeah.
And that the best friends are going to hit that line, that the joke's going to be on Pac, that he's going to try, and that just watch, it's going to work. And there was, at that catering table, there was some doubt at the table whether this was actually going to work. And people, I think but boy, did that work really well.
It really did. I think that really opened a lot of people's eyes about him, we know what kind of character he was and how people had loved him. But once he stepped in the ring and once we saw what he could do, I remember saying, oh, my God.
That's the genius of it, because, people don't know that, inside of this guy's gimmick, underneath that is this amazing wrestler.
Right, exactly.
And a genius, an actual genius of a person who's, if they only knew, that his ideas in terms of execution, presentation, putting together a wrestling match. He's such a great technician in terms of just in terms of obviously bell-to-bell wrestling, but also just in terms of the little details he puts into his character.
Right.
He's really come, like we said, such a long way since we started, but that's been one of the most fun things I've ever worked on or done is, building up that match. And Pac versus Orange Cassidy didn't have, in a lot of people's eyes, all that much buildup. We announced it on 3 days' notice before the pay-per-view, on the go-home show, out of nowhere, as something to pour gasoline kind of on the fire. It ended up being a hugely successful show and a hugely successful match. And obviously, a lot of that's credit to Pac and him being such a great star, great heel, great wrestler. But also, Orange Cassidy was a great opponent for him. And then since then, in this time, we talked about the best friends and people that have stepped up and done a lot for us. Orange Cassidy has been huge for us this year. Before the pandemic with Revolution, and then in the pandemic on a weekly basis. He's been a major part of the show.
Right.
And we talk about the best friends, the same thing applies to him. Week in, week out, he was there for us and a huge part of the shows. And this is somebody that organically earned this spot, and nobody can take it away from him. And now, just like we were talking about with Kenny and Hangman on night one against the best friends, Kenny and Hangman, when we came in, they're two of the biggest names in the company. And, every big wrestling fan would list them among the top stars in AEW when we started. The best friends have earned that status and over the last several weeks now, and worked their way up. Kenny and Hangman did that over the accumulation of their careers. The best friends have seen this meteoric rise really in the last several months. Orange Cassidy wasn't the biggest name when we started AEW. Chris Jericho was the biggest name when we started AEW. And while Chris may still be the biggest name since we started, the guy who the arrow is pointing up on the most may be Orange Cassidy. He's a star right now, and the numbers show it, and he proves it every week. And I'm really excited for that match.
A lot of fans are excited about the tag teams we have in that 8-man tag team match.
Oh, boy.
It's going to be an awesome match. I'm glad you brought that up, because Tone, that is going to be something spectacular. I mean, for the top teams, 4 teams, all so different. I mean, different
some
styles.
of the top teams in the world.
Yeah.
Not even just in AEW, but the variation in style amongst all 4 of these teams is insane.
Yes, you have FTR with Dax Hardwood and Cash Wheeler, and then you've got the Young Bucks, and they're teaming, and they have the idea of the Young Bucks and FTR teaming.
What world do we live in?
Yeah, who would have ever thought that would ever be possible? But that's happening. We've got Young Bucks and FTR in an 8-man teaming against the Lucha Brothers and the Butcher and the Blade. I think it's going to be an awesome match, and it's great to have the Lucha Brothers back here.
Yes.
Yeah, it really is together.
Oh my God, so good.
So nice to have them back. Penna had been trapped across the border and wanting to come back and wrestle, and there's not possible. And now that it's been made possible, and we've got these precautions at the shows, and people can come and feel safe about it. Penna and Phoenix being back here is awesome. And Butcher and the Blade, you talk about teams that have stepped up, and they had that great match with FTR, and they've been a really important team for us, and we've seen them involved with MJF and in some big stories. This is probably the biggest thing they've been involved with in AEW, to be involved in one of these top matches on Fyter Fest, and the first time the Young Bucks and FTR ever team. And then you talk about the Young Bucks and FTR and the Lucha Brothers, maybe the 3 best tag teams in the world. I mean, maybe the 3 best tag teams of the last decade. And then Butcher and the Blade, they've stepped up and where nobody questions why they're in this match. So again, I think that's going to be another awesome match on this show.
So it all culminates now with the world title match, and we have two behemoths. I don't know if I can use that term or not, but two of the strongest, most powerful, violent guys in all of AEW going at it.
I don't think Behemoth does Brian Cage the justice.
No, maybe not.
He's a scary, large individual.
And then Taz is involved now with Brian Cage.
Oh, boy.
And, man, what a way to close out 2 days of Fyter Fest.
Yeah, it's going to be an awesome title match. I really believe in Brian Cage. Brian
Absolutely.
Cage, he signed with us in January, but he didn't debut until Double or Nothing. I think it was January when his contract expired. It was early in the year.
Yeah.
And Brian was rehabilitating an injury for a while. It's hard to believe a guy as big as Brian could get hurt. And he seems indestructible, and I think that's where Moxley is going to be looking for an edge on him, and it'll be really, really interesting match. It's going to be also interesting because of Taz.
Yes.
And what Taz has done with Brian Cage as a manager, as an advisor, as an advocate. The
Yes.
promos have been tremendous,
Yeah.
and Taz and John Moxley are two of the best talkers in wrestling. Brian Cage and John Moxley getting together in wrestling is going to be like a tornado.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be a great main event. And for me, when Brian Cage went out and attacked him in the parking lot and brought the fight to him, that's what it's all about. When people thought I would be upset with that and that they destroyed the company car with the AEW license plate on it that we use for our food runs and catering and things like that. But I thought it was that's what Dynamite's all about, is great moments like that.
Yeah.
I was happy to pay that repair bill, and I'm sorry about that destruction, but I think that's what it's all about. And that John was, we would have liked to have had Moxley in action these last couple of weeks, but he's been really banged up since Cage did that. But I understand he will be good to go for Fyter Fest, and I think it's going to be the toughest test we've had for Moxley.
Yeah, I agree. Moxley has never disappointed. I mean, from the time he won the title of Revolution to the Double or Nothing match that he had against Brody Lee, I mean, he has turned it on when the bell sounds. So it should be great.
From Revolution, I mean, since he won the belt at Revolution, through the match at Double or Nothing, absolutely, he's been a great champion. And this is, like I said, it's his toughest test, but I think Brian Cage would be a great champion too. So for us, it's kind of a no-lose scenario.
It could go either way.
It's going to be an awesome match.
Everybody wins because it's going to be incredible.
Yeah, I'm excited, and we have some fun stuff, surprise, peeling the curtain back. This is going to be a fun show. Both weeks are going to be really fun, and you're going to want to stay tuned and down to the end, because this is going to be a great match and a great night.
All right. Well, listen, it's great getting back with everybody again. It's
always.
Isn't it? I mean, I live for these. I really do. Just
I love going to work.
I love going to work too.
Yay.
Thank you for that, man.
You can't beat this, and that's what I want to hear. I mean, I'm really glad that we'll all be back together in 6 days, and I can't wait.
I can't wait either.
I'm so excited.
Fyter Fest begins this coming Wednesday. It's July 1st, and that's on TNT, 8 o'clock, 7 Central. And then night 2 of Fyter Fest will be July 8th, same time, 8 to 7 Central, only on TNT. It's going to be the greatest Dynamites ever, I can tell you that.
11 matches total, 2 nights. Don't miss it.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks for having me on the show, and I always enjoy seeing you two, and I'll see you next week at Fyter Fest.
Yeah, what's up?
Be sure to subscribe to AEW Unrestricted, the podcast, for free wherever you get your podcasts. And just search AEW Unrestricted if you're looking for it. And I'm Tony Schiavone.
I'm Aubrey Edwards.
Thanks for listening to AEW Unrestricted.
Peace out.